and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1856B, and today's date is May 1st, 2019, and the title of the episode is Deep State Fear, Hopelessness, Anger, Second Act Begins, Justice. Now, before we get started, I wanted to talk about privacy. Facebook expects to face a massive fine of up to $5 billion from the Federal Trade Commission as a result of an investigation into its privacy policies. The probe centers around the violation of 2011 agreement Facebook made with the FTC that required the social media giant to gain explicit consent from users to share their data. Once again, big data fails to protect its consumers' privacy. Why should we keep trusting them? Well, we shouldn't. And one way to fight back is by using a virtual private network to simply block your IP address from big data constantly spying and tracking you. Virtual Shield is my VPN of choice because it's the easiest and fastest VPN to use. Plus, they will never sell or share your data with anyone else. Stop trusting free big data sites. Use a VPN and fight back. This month, Virtual Shield is offering a Memorial Day special of 30% off all VPN plans and all premium add-ons, including Protection Plus, residential access, monthly maintenance, phone support, and VIP performance plans for as low as $3 per month. Sign up for a free 30-day trial to Virtual Shield VPN and see what the hype is about. You have nothing to lose. Their no-log policy protects its users from any data breaches. Protect your personal data today by clicking the link below. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, today we had the hearing with Bill Barr. He was in front of Congress. They were asking him a lot of questions. And some of the individuals, some of the key players, you can see how nervous, angry, and how pissed off they were by the way they were asking certain questions. And they wanted certain answers, and they didn't get what they wanted. And you can see that they are afraid of what is happening. Now, the whole reason for this was to get rid of Barr, to smear him, to get him to resign, because they know that he's investigating all of it. They know he knows everything, and they know what's coming. This is why they're so afraid. Before we get into all of that, let's talk about Assange. It looks like Julian Assange has been sentenced to 50 weeks in a UK prison, close to the maximum sentence for skipping bail in 2012 to seek refuge in the Ecuadorian embassy. And we see right now that he will be in prison, but we also have to see the extradition, how this is all going to play out. But I do believe that Assange will be safe. He will be used later on, and there is a purpose to all of this. This is part of the plan, and we discussed this many times before. Now, when Rod Rosenstein submitted his letter of resignation, he mentioned very interesting things in the letter, and Anon sums this up and makes the connections. And Anon said, interesting references in Rosenstein's resignation letter. He quoted three people. Attorney General Robert Jackson. Jackson was a prosecutor at the Nuremberg trials. Edward Levy. Levy was Attorney General under Ford and credited with reestablishing law and order following Watergate. John Ashcroft, although Ashcroft has a mixed history, at best promoting the Patriot Act, for example. This is notable from Wikipedia. In March 2004, the Justice Department under Ashcroft ruled that the Stellar Wind domestic intelligence program was illegal. The day after the ruling, Ashcroft became critically ill with acute pancreatitis. President Bush sent his White House counsel, Alberto Gonzales, and Chief of Staff Andrew Carr Jr. to Ashcroft's hospital bed. They wanted him to sign a document reversing the Justice Department's ruling. The semi-conscious Ashcroft refused to sign. Acting Attorney General James Comey and Jack Goldsmith, head of the Office of Legal Counsel for Department of Justice, were there to back him up. 22, FBI Director Robert Mueller, who also was rushing to the hospital, spoke by phone to Ashcroft's security detail, ordering them not to allow Card or Gonzales to have Comey removed from the hospital room. Stellar Wind was the code name of warrantless surveillance program begun under the George W. Bush administration. The program's activities involved data mining of large database of the communication of American citizens, including email communications, telephone conversations, financial transactions, and internet activity. William Binney, a retired technical leader with the NSA, discussed some of the architectural and operational elements of the program at the 2012 Chaos Communication Congress. The intelligence community also was able to obtain from the U.S. Treasury Department suspicious activity reports, or SARs, which are reports of activities such as large cash transactions that are submitted by financial institutions under anti-money laundering rules. There were internal disputes within the U.S. Justice Department about the legality of the program because data is collected for the large number of people, not just the subjects of Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act warrants. During the Bush administration, the stellar Wynn cases were referred to by FBI agents at pizza cases because many seemingly suspicious cases turn out to be food takeout orders. According to then FBI Director Robert Mueller, approximately 99% of the cases led nowhere, but it's that other 1% that we've got to be concerned about. All the above from Wiki. Interesting choice of the three men to quote in the Rod Rosenstein letter. Now, it seems that more information on Nellie Ohr is coming out, that she was passing info to three other colleagues. Dirty Truth tweets out, there's a couple things I think you'll hear some information about Ukraine this week. Hopefully, I'll be back on tomorrow to discuss Nellie Ohr. She wasn't only passing information to her husband, she was passing information to three other colleagues. Take a listen to the conversation with John Solomon.
You also working on Ukraine. What else is coming and who is going to be in trouble?
Well, I think a couple things. You're going to hear from the Ukrainian embassy later this week on a pretty extraordinary admission of what went on at the embassy and its complicity, or it's an effort by a Democratic National Committee contractor to get dirt on Donald Trump from the embassy. But more importantly, we're going to take a look tomorrow night. I hope to be on your show again, and I hope to have the column out by tomorrow. Nellie Ohr was routing significant amounts of her Fusion GPS research on Donald Trump, Paul Manafort, Russian figures, through to the Justice Department, not just to her husband, but to three of her colleagues. And we're going to be able to expose those emails tomorrow night and why they're relevant to both her sworn testimony to Congress and also the greater story about how did we create this false narrative. You're going to see a whole new flow of information we didn't know about until just a few days ago.
You know, Operation Crossfire Hurricane, more like Operation Boomerang. Sarah, this is an enormous amount of...
You know, as you can see, more information is going to be coming out about Nellie Ohr, and I believe everything else. And I think as more information comes in, we're going to find out a lot more. Now, Meadows was out there, and he's saying that he's planning on criminally referring a few individuals connected to the opposition research firm Fusion GPS. Meadows, he didn't divulge any names. However, House Republicans have stated in the past that Fusion GPS co-founder Glenn Simpson made false statements to the House Intel panel during a 2017 testimony about the timing of his contact with twice-demoted Department of Justice official Bruce Ohr. Meadows said the following, I can tell you that there are 2 or 3 individuals that we believe could have potentially given false testimony to Congress. We have been looking at that, reviewing not only the Mueller report, but comparing those to transcribed interviews that might have happened in Congress. Meadows said that the criminal referrals would be related to the phony dossier in Fusion GPS, the opposition research firm which commissioned the dossier, and the author was Christopher Steele. He said, I do have great concerns on the role, not just Fusion GPS, but those associated with it that played early on, and how was that used or not used as it relates to this investigation. So we're going to see this come out in a couple of days, and we're going to see the Comey report come out in a couple of days. Now, what's very interesting, we know that Barr was testifying today, and it looks like the mainstream media, the deep state, they strategically played their political game, and they did it right before Bill Barr went live in front of Congress. In a strategic set of rolled out narratives today, together with their leaked sources inside the Mueller-Rosenstein group, and in close coordination with their media allies and lawfare community, timed a series of events to target Attorney General Bill Barr ahead of his Senate testimony. The timing of all this stuff was completely transparent. It began with the letter from Senator Mazie Hirono to the Inspector General demanding an immediate investigation of A.G. Barr for not agreeing to the carefully constructed narrative by Weissman, Mueller, and Rosenstein. A group of 12 Democrats demand the Department of Justice, OIG, start investigating Attorney General Barr. Hours later, the Washington Post and the New York Times simultaneously release dual-timed articles outlining their reception of a March 27th letter leaked from inside the Weissman-Mueller-Rosenstein operation, showing Special Counsel Group were unhappy with Barr's 4-page summary of the Weissman-Mueller report because it diluted the intended efforts of Weissman, Mueller, and Rosenstein. Now, they did this on purpose to set up Bill Barr. It was done perfectly the day before. So, before Bill Barr was going to appear, they launched their proactive narrative assault to set the stage. And if you look, you can see the timing was perfect. Representative Nadler, he tweeted out, Mueller has written a letter objecting to Barr's summary of his report because it did not fully capture the context, nature, and substance of the investigation. I have demanded the letter, and Barr must answer for this. Mueller must be allowed to testify. Now, if you look at the tweet, the time was 4:34 p.m., April 30th. Maggie Hammerman. The news that Mueller was concerned with Barr presentation adds new context to why Barr is protesting answering questions from House Judiciary Committee staff. Her tweet came out at 4:36 p.m., April 30th. Very, very close. And there were others that did this. But then if you look at the Washington Post and New York Times, they tweeted out this article at 4:07 p.m., April 30th, and then everyone else came, and they were ready for it because they knew what was coming, and they were ready for it, and they started tweeting this all out. This was done on purpose. Now, if we look at the letter and we look at what has been said, it looks like Mueller did not accuse Bill Barr of releasing inaccurate letter to Congress. Rather, he felt the media coverage of the letter misinterpreted the Russia investigation. Jeff Carlson tweeted out the following about the Washington Post article in regards to Mueller's letter to Barr. Note that Mueller sent his letter before Barr had reached a final decision on how and in what form the Mueller report would be released. So the letter was before Barr even reached his final decision. So their whole narrative is completely falling apart. It's not working. Now, we know that Bill Barr, he was grilled by Republicans and Democrats, and we can see that those individuals that have the most to lose, they were screaming and yelling the loudest. And you can hear the fear in their voices. You can feel how they felt hopeless at this point in time. Now, Republican South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham dropped the F-bomb on live TV when he was reading Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, and he said, "Oh, sorry about that, children." But he was reading the text messages on purpose. He was setting the stage to show everyone on national TV how these people completely were working to take down Trump. Listen to what Graham said.
The accusation against the Secretary Clinton, was that she set a private server up somewhere in her house and classified information was on it to avoid the disclosure requirements and the transparency requirements required of being Secretary of State. So that was investigated. What do we know? We know that the person in charge of investigating hated Trump's guts. This is what Strzok said on February 12, 2016. Now, he's in charge of the Clinton email investigation. Oh, he's Trump's abysmal. I keep hoping the charade will end and people will just dump him. February 12, 2016. Page is the Department of Justice lawyer assigned to this case. March 3rd, 2016. God, Trump is a loathsome human being. Strzok. Oh my God, Trump's an idiot. Page, he's awful. Strzok. God, Hillary should win $100 million to nothing. Compare those two people to Mueller. March 16th, 2016. I cannot believe Trump is likely to be an actual serious candidate for president. July the 21st, 2016. Trump is a disaster. I have no idea how destabilizing his presidency would be. August the 8th, 2016. 3 days before Strzok was made deputy acting in charge of the counterintelligence division of the FBI. He's never going to become president, right? Page to Strzok. No, he won't. We'll stop him. These are the people investigating the Clinton email situation and start the counterintelligence investigation of the Trump campaign. Compare them to Mueller. August the 15th, 2016. Strzok. I want to believe the path you threw out for consideration in Andy's office, that there's no way he gets elected, but I'm afraid we can't take that risk. It's like an insurance policy in the unlikely event you die before you're 40. August 26, 2016. Just went to the Southern Virginia Walmart. I could smell the Trump support. October the 19th, 2016. Trump is a idiot. He's unable to provide a coherent answer. Sorry to the kids out there. These are the people that made a decision that Clinton didn't do anything wrong, and a counterintelligence investigation of the Trump campaign was warranted. We're going to, in a bipartisan way, I hope, deal with Russia.
Now, Lindsey Graham, he set the stage. People are now thinking, oh my God, look what they were really trying to do. They were politically motivated. And then Bill Barr was asked if there were any criminal leak investigations underway. And he was asked by Chuck Grassley, because we know that Chuck Grassley and many others sent him letters about all of this. And Bill Barr said, yes, there are. Take a listen.
Prosecutive decision, then he shouldn't have investigated. That was the time to pull up.
Okay. There have been a number of leaks coming out of the Justice Department and FBI during high-profile investigations. The Inspector General found that during the department's investigation of Hillary Clinton for mishandling highly classified information, there was a culture of unauthorized media contacts. During the Russian investigation, the leaks continued. Leaks undermined the ability of investigators to investigate. Further leaks to the papers while Congress's questions to the department go unanswered is unacceptable. Why? What are you doing to investigate unauthorized media contacts by the department and FBI officials during the Russian investigation?
We have multiple criminal leak investigations underway.
And as you can see, there are investigations going on. Now, Bill Barr, he knows exactly what's going on, and you can just see that he's trying to hold back a lot of information because he can't let this out. He knows what these people have done, but he can't say anything. This is why we call it the show. This is why Q calls it the show. And then Bill Barr was asked about spying. This is coming from Senator Sheldon, because they don't like to use this word spying. You know, it's not politically correct because, you know, if they were doing it legally, it's not called spying. And the reason why Bill Barr is calling it spying is because this was done illegally. They didn't have a legal case to get the warrants, so they were actually spying on the president. Now, of course, they don't want this word out there. But Bill Barr says, hey, I use this word and I like it. Take a listen.
In the entirety of your previous career in the Department of Justice, including as Attorney General, have you ever referred to authorized department investigative activities officially or publicly as spying? I'm not asking for private conversation.
I'm not going to abjure the use of the word spying. I think my first job was in CIA, and I don't think the word spying has any pejorative connotation at all. To me, the question is always whether or not it's authorized and adequately predicated spying. I think spying is a good English word that, in fact, doesn't have synonyms because it is the broadest word incorporating really all forms of covert intelligence collection. So I'm not going to back off the word spying, except I will say I'm not suggesting any pejorative, and I use it frequently, as do media.
When did you decide to use it? Was it off the cuff in the hearing that day, or did you go into that hearing intending to use the word spying?
It was actually off the cuff, to tell you the truth, and when the
Congressman, probably?
Well, from Schatz, from Hawaii.
Oh, was here? Shaheen?
No.
Whoever it was, go ahead.
Yeah, when he challenged me and said, you want to change your language, I was actually thinking, like, what's the issue? I don't consider it a pejorative. But if, frankly, we went back and looked at press usage, and up until all the FAW outrage a couple of weeks ago, it's commonly used in the press to refer to authorized activities, such as referring to the FISA court as the spy court.
But it's not commonly used by the department.
What?
It is not commonly used by the department. My time is
commonly used by me.
And the reason why Bill Barr is saying that he likes this word, because he understands that the FISA warrants, they were gotten illegally. They really didn't have a case, and a lot of the information was kept from the judges. This is why they're investigating this now. Actually, they've already investigated it. They already know. But again, they're not ready to release this information. Now, Paul Sperry tweeted out the following. Breaking. AG Barr testified today that I'm not going to back off the word spying to describe covert intelligence operations launched against the Trump campaign and presidential transition, particularly when such secret surveillance is unauthorized and inadequately predicated. And he's absolutely right. Now, we know that the deep state, the Dems, they're out there saying, listen, we want the full unredacted report. That's what we want. And if we can't get it, you're hiding something. Well, Bill Barr offered access to a less redacted version of the report to 12 members of Congress, 6 from the Democratic side, 6 from the Republican side. Do you know how many people read it? 2. We had Representative Doug Collins, and we had Senator Lindsey Graham. Mitch McConnell says he's going to be getting around to it. The Democrats, they didn't even read it. You think they would rush to read the less redacted report. They already know it says nothing. There is no Russian collusion. There is no obstruction. They're trying to make a case because they're trying to get Trump any way they possibly can, because they know where all of this is headed. And they're afraid and they're nervous. Trump tweeted out the following. The Democrats can't come to grips with the fact that there was no collusion, there was no conspiracy, there was no obstruction. What we should be focused on is what's been going on in our government at the highest levels of the FBI, Senator Josh Hawley. And Rand Paul tweeted out something very interesting. Subpoena Clapper and Brennan. Demand they answer whether they leaked classified information to the Washington Post. Examine their call records and lock them up if evidence proves them to be the leakers. Now, these people know Barr is coming after them. That's why they're working furiously to publicly discredit and smear him. They are becoming desperate to get Barr to resign. And if you look, you can see when Kamala Harris was asking Barr questions, she was very angry, very forceful, and she was asking him if he looked at the evidence. No, Mueller looked at the evidence. Mueller collected all the information. Barr doesn't have to go and re-interview everyone. That's not the purpose of this. He looks at the final report, and then he says, okay, you don't really have anything, because if Mueller had something, he would have indicted Trump. He would have moved for impeachment. He would have moved for something, just like all the other people. But Kamala Harris, she wants Barr to resign. She actually tweeted out the following. What I just saw from Attorney General Barr is unacceptable. Barr must resign. Eric Holder, the conduct of AG Barr over the last few weeks and in the hearing today has been shown to be unacceptable. I thought he was an institutionalist committed to both the rule of law and his role as a lawyer for the American people. I was very wrong. He's protecting the president. And Comey was out there. He was also bashing Barr. Why are these people so nervous and afraid? Because they know they broke the law. Remember, Think Mirror turned everything around. Bill Barr right now is following the rule of law. Mueller, with millions and millions of dollars, produced a report. He didn't say Trump obstructed justice. He didn't say there was Russian collusion. He said the opposite. No Russian collusion, and he couldn't find anything where he actually obstructed justice. Just because you want to do something, just because you're thinking about it or asking questions, it doesn't mean you're actually obstructing justice. Trump let the entire investigation continue without interrupting it. Sessions recused himself. Trump, well, he let that be. Rod Rosenstein was in charge. Let that be. Mueller, he investigated thousands upon thousands of documents and papers and people, indicted people, did all these different things. Spent $30 million. Trump did nothing. And you would think from the last 2 years, with them saying, we know he did Russian collusion, Schiff saying, I have all the evidence, the mainstream media out there saying, we know he was colluded with Russia. Now you don't even hear the word Russian collusion. Now all you hear is obstruction. Well, think about it. The whole entire investigation was started because of Clinton paying for the Steele dossier and certain deep state operatives creating a narrative that Trump colluded with Russia. So it was started falsely. And now there is no Russian collusion. How can he obstruct a false investigation? I mean, they're really trying everything they possibly can, but it's not going to work. And we're going to hear from Ted Cruz a little bit later on what he said about the entire thing. Now, Trump is telling Schumer, Pelosi, he wants to revisit the failed Obamacare stabilization bill. We know the penalty ends in 2019. We know that the stabilization bill would lower the premiums for people. And this is the Alexander Murray bill meant to prevent spikes in premiums. So the Alexander Murray bill meant to prevent spikes in premiums would have reinstated cost-sharing reduction subsidies that would reimburse insurers for paying out-of-pocket costs to cover low-income Obamacare customers. The bipartisan effort ultimately failed, though, and Trump is saying, listen, maybe we need to revisit the failed agreement where we can stabilize these prices, and I think they should. And for those people that don't have health insurance who've been paying this penalty all along, there will be no penalty next year. And this is just a helpful hint. I don't get anything from this or anything like that. Since you don't have to pay the penalty next year and there's going to be no new insurance, you can go get temporary insurance. And you can pick, like, I want it for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year. And it is half the price of the Obamacare insurance policies. So there is some type of alternative. And now, since the penalty is gone, you can get this at half price. And all you have to do is type into your search engine, short-term healthcare policies, and you can choose what you want. You can make it really inexpensive, or you can make it as expensive as you want, because, you're picking different options. But this is just a helpful hint for those people that didn't have health insurance during this period of time. Now, the White House, they want $8.6 billion for 300 miles of the border fence in 2020 budget. We know that Trump is building the wall now, and they're looking to include the other portion of the money so they can build the 300 miles on the southern border. Now, Trump tweeted out the following: Congress must change the immigration laws now. Dems won't act. Wall is being built. 400 miles by end of next year. Mexico must stop the march to the border. And you can see that Trump is pushing his agenda. He will have the wall built. I mean, if you just look what he's done in the past with his own buildings and failed projects, he always gets his stuff done. Now, Running the Race tweeted out something very interesting. And it said, Eric Schmidt to step down from CEO of Google. And notable. So basically, it's not really the CEO, but he already stepped down there. He's stepping down from the board. And we need to go back to post 444. And this is Eric Schmidt in North Korea. Remember, Q has been telling us about this. And there's a picture of Eric Schmidt in North Korea. And then we move on to post 1504. And Anon said, Access kills Gmail drafts. Q says, what came out in IG report? James Comey Gmail. They all had them. Read drops, RE private emails, RE convicting HRC equals convicting themselves. Why did the entire Hussein admin use private emails? Eric Schmidt is key. What a wonderful day. Q, post 2620. And Annan says, Q is talking about Google's 10Q filing with the SEC. My assumption would be for their 331.19 or 630.19 10Q filing. Q says, assumption correct. 10K YE. 2019 1 plus 2 should be closely evaluated. Help will be provided. Senate to investigate 2019. Well, what just came out? Well, it looks like the financials for Alphabet just came out at the end of March 31st, 2019. So I'm suspecting that Q is going to be coming back online to help us walk us through all of this, to explain what is going on with Google. Now let's talk about Venezuela and the coup that completely failed. Now, we're getting word that the neocons, Guaido, they were informed that the military was going to switch to their sides. And what happened was the military did not come out and support Guaido. Actually, the opposite happened. And this entire coup went down the drain. Now, this might have been a complete and utter setup. I know Pompeo's out there saying, listen, we might be going in militarily. This makes no sense whatsoever. First of all, Russia brought in new air defense systems. The jungle's there. They have an army. This would be an endless war, which Trump is, stopping in all different other places. So the question is, why would he start a war here? I mean, Russia brought in their air defense system. They have a military, and you can see that Maduro, well, he's still controlling the military. So this would be a war that would go on for quite a while. I mean, look at Syria. I mean, that went on for 11 years. So this wouldn't work out. But I do believe that this was done on purpose. And there are many different agendas associated with this. Remember, Trump tweeted out the following. If Cuban troops and militia do not immediately cease military and other operations for the purpose of causing death and destruction to the Constitution of Venezuela, a full and complete embargo, together with the highest level sanctions, will be placed on the island of Cuba. Hopefully, all Cuban soldiers will promptly and peacefully return to their island. Now, does Cuba actually have military in Venezuela? I do believe that Trump is actually speaking to the deep state. Because the regimes in Iran and Venezuela, they built close relationships to Obama. I mean, this is why we saw Obama remove the sanctions in Cuba. This is why Obama sent pallets of cash to Iran. And I believe this was a complete setup. Now, the neocons like Bolton and Pompeo and the rest, they're doing what they do best. But I do believe that this whole push worked in the favor of Trump. But before we get to that, I just want to go to Joe M. This is The Storm is Upon Us. He tweeted out the following. Is Trump saying those tanks and forces suppressing dissenters in Venezuela are actually Cuban troops and not their own military? This means the deep state have deployed foreign forces to protect the tyrannical Maduro regime from losing his stranglehold over the country. Now, Dinesh D'Souza tweeted out, dead silence from @AOC and other socialists about Venezuela. What? No lectures about how they need to start recycling? No praise for the gun confiscation policy of Maduro regime? No calls to crush the counter-revolutionaries in the street? No, there was nothing. Think about what has happened in Venezuela. Right now, Trump is moving his focus over to Cuba. We also have this incident where there was this military vehicle that ran over an individual, a citizen. And right there and then, people started to come out and say, listen, this is why we need the Second Amendment. Because when a socialist government attacks its people, you need a way to defend yourself. And this is what the Second Amendment was really about. Defending yourself against a government that would push harm on its citizens. And you can see they can use this right now to push a narrative. Plus, all you have to do is listen. This is how you want your country to go. You want to have it go towards socialism. Take a look at Venezuela. So what Trump is doing right now, he is creating this narrative in Venezuela and allowing the neocons and those individuals to do what they do best. And he's going to use every piece of this. So the entire operation is going to be used against those who want socialism, those who want to take the guns away from the people. All he has to do is point the finger at Venezuela. Brilliant. We see that the U.S. right now, they're in direct talks with the Taliban to end the 17-year-old war. And this is actually happening. Now think about it. Trump is ending the war in Syria. I know a lot of people don't believe this. Yes, there are still individuals that are fighting against them. There's still those neocons, still people in Congress, still people who want these wars. Trump is trying to stop them. Every time Bolton is out there saying that we're going to stay there forever, we're not leaving until Iran leaves, Trump comes out and says, no, we are leaving. When Bolton comes out and says we're going to keep the sanctions on North Korea, Trump comes out and says, you know what, I'm going to remove the sanctions from North Korea. There are certain times that Trump comes out and says, okay, you went where you wanted to go, now I'm backing it up a little bit. But he needs these people in these positions on purpose. It keeps the mainstream media very busy. It keeps everyone busy. Why they push their operations in these countries to snuff out the deep state. Now, as you can see, Bill Barr, he finished his testimony in front of the Senate. I believe he's going to be going to the House next. And once all this is done, it's the second act, which means the investigation is going to move forward, which means that everything that we talked about is going to be coming out. Now, if you look at these individuals, they're getting very nervous. They're starting to panic. And we need to remember that Rod Rosenstein, Sessions, they both can be called to testify. Gitmo has been renovated and at least 100 guards added. The commander at the base, well, that individual has been replaced. We have the Comey report coming out. We have the D-Class coming out. We have the OIG report coming out. We have the sealed indictments coming out. Everything has been set up. Yes, those individuals, they're trying to figure out a way to stop this. This is why they're smearing Barr right now, trying to make it seem like he's on the side of Trump, where he's not really looking at the rule of law. Actually, Ted Cruz kind of sums up the whole thing. Take a listen.
Cruz. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General Barr, thank you for your testimony. And let me start by just saying thank you. You've had an extraordinarily successful legal career. You didn't have to take this job. And you stepped forward and answered the call yet again, knowing full well that you would be subject to the kind of slanderous treatment, the Kavanaugh treatment, that we have seen of senators impugning your integrity. And I, for one, am grateful that you answered that call and are leading the Department of Justice both with integrity and fidelity to law. That is what the nation rightly expects of our Attorney General, and I believe you are performing that very ably. I think this hearing today has been quite revealing to anyone watching it, although perhaps not for the reason some of the Democratic senators intended. One thing that's revealing in the discussion and questions that came up, a word that occurred almost none at all, is the word Russia. For 2.5 years, we heard Democratic senators going on and on and on about Russia collusion. We heard journalists going on and on and on about Russia collusion, alleging, among other things, some using extreme rhetoric, calling the president a traitor. We heard very little of that in this hearing today. Instead, the principal attack that Democratic senators have marshaled upon you concerns this March 27th letter from Robert Mueller. And it's an attack that I want people to understand just how revealing it is. If this is their whole argument, they ain't got nothing. So their argument is as follows, and let me see if I understand it correctly. You initially, when you received the Mueller report, released to Congress and the public a 4-page summary of the conclusions. Then, on March 27th, Mr. Mueller asked you to release an additional 19 pages, the introduction and summary that he had drafted. And indeed, in the letter, what he says is, quote, "I am requesting that you provide these materials to Congress and authorize their public release at this time." And the reason he says it is that to fully capture the context, nature, and substance of the office's work and conclusion. So you did not release those 19 pages at that time. Instead, a couple of weeks later, you released 448 pages, the entire report, which includes those 19 pages. Do I have that timeline correct?
That's right.
So their entire argument is, General Barr, you suppressed the 19 pages that are entirely public, that we have, that we can read, that they know every word of it, and their complaint is it was delayed a few weeks. And that was because of your decision not to release the report piecemeal, but rather to release those 19 pages with the entire 448 pages produced by the special counsel.
Yes.
If that is their argument, I have to say that is an exceptionally weak argument. Because if you're hiding something, I'll tell you right now, General Barr, you're doing a very lousy job of hiding it. Because the thing that they're suggesting you hid, you released to Congress and the American people. And so if anyone wants to know what's in those 19 pages that are being so breathlessly, oh, Bob Mueller said release the 19 pages. You did. You did it a couple of weeks later. But we can read every word of the 19 pages along with the full report. In your judgment, was the Mueller report thorough?
Yes.
Did they expend enormous time, energy, and resources investigating and producing that report?
Yes.
And the Mueller report concluded flat out on the question of Russian collusion, the evidence did not support criminal charges.
That's right.
And indeed, the Mueller report, if I have these stats right, was compiled by 19 lawyers who were on the team, approximately 40 FBI agents, intelligence analysts, forensic accountants, and professional staff. The special counsel issued more than 2,800 subpoenas, nearly 500 search warrants, more than 230 orders for communication records, almost 50 orders authorizing the use of pen registers, 13 requests to foreign government for evidence, and interviewed approximately 500 witnesses. Is that correct?
That's right.
So we have investigated over and over and over again, and the substance of the accusations that have been leveled at the president for 2.5 years have magically disappeared. Instead, the complaint is the 19 pages that we can all read that is entirely public, could have been released a few weeks earlier. Oh, the calamity. Let me shift to a different topic, a topic that has been addressed already quite a bit. I believe the Department of Justice under the Obama administration was profoundly politicized and was weaponized to go after political opponents of the president. If that is the case, would you agree that politicizing the Department of Justice and weaponizing it to go after your political opponents is an abuse of power?
I think it's an abuse of power regardless of who does it.
Of course.
Yeah.
To the best of your knowledge, when did surveillance of the Trump campaign begin?
The position today appears to be that it began in July, but I do not know the answer to the question.
It is an unusual thing, is it not, for the Department of Justice to be investigating a candidate for president, particularly a candidate from the opposing party of the party in power?
Yes.
Do we know if the Obama administration investigated any other candidates running for president?
I don't know.
Do we know if they wiretapped any other?
I guess they were investigating Hillary Clinton for the email.
Do we know if there were wiretaps?
I don't know.
Do we know if there were efforts to send investigators in wearing a wire?
I don't know.
So, General Barr, I would urge, you have had remarkable transparency. You promised this committee you would with regard to the Mueller report. You promised this committee and the American people you would release the Mueller report publicly. You have released the report. Anyone can read it. It's right here. I appreciate that transparency. I would ask you to bring the same transparency to this line of questioning about whether and the...
Everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.